I'm here to make your life easy. Catch my drift? Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Priscilla. Welcome to my next location. I am a Seattle-based flight attendant working with a major US airline company. And if you're new to this channel, once again, I have three playlists actually in my description box. One on how to become a flight attendant from start to finish. 2 on my training experience, flight attendant training experience. And 3 is all my schedule reactions for every month ever since I got on the line. The purpose of those videos is just to provide you all or anybody trying to become a flight attendant, if you just applied, if you are on the line currently, with all the information you need to ease yourself into the job. I'm here to make your life easy. Catch my drift? All right, let's get into today's video. So in today's video, I will be talking about being on reserve. Although primarily it will focus on the airline company that I work for, it would also, in the long run, give you like a brief overview of essentially what being on reserve means. So without further ado, let's slide right into today's video. So starting off with being on reserve. Essentially, being on reserve is when you are at the mercy of the airline company you work for in question. You being on call. So you are ready to work if crew scheduling should call you right away. That's what reserve means, essentially. A brief example is that I'm on reserve today. What it means is that at any point in time, crew scheduling can call me and assign me a trip or assign me a duty. Assignment does not necessarily have to be a trip. It can be you doing airport standby as well, or airport sit, which I'm going to explain as well. But that's just a brief overview of being on reserve, which is also being on call, which we refer to as access days as well. So the next portion of this video, I will talk about the implications essentially of being on reserve. First of all, with the airline company that I work for, you get 6 days in a month until you get to the seniority level where you don't get assigned anymore unless you choose to be assigned to reserve. So you can actually bid for it, like the way we bid for trips and layovers and certain trips, credit hours, among other things. If you get to the seniority level where you're no longer by default assigned reserve, you can bid for reserve, or you can pick it up from other flight attendants. So I literally know senior mamas and papas who would actually actively pick up reserve from other flight attendants or request for it as well. So it's up to them. But you being a new flight attendant, you should know for sure that you are going to be assigned reserve, at least at this point in time. I haven't heard of any base getting to the point where new flight attendants are no longer assigned reserve anymore. So by default, you would get assigned reserve. With the airline company that I work for, it's only 6 days out of a month. But with some other airlines, you are actually put on reserve right out of training, and it's for the entire month. You do get days off. You do have the ability to bid for the days off that you want. You do have the ability to bid for, I think, the type of reserve you want, which is whether you want to be PM, AM, among other things. I believe that's a thing. So that's how different my airline is from some of the other airlines out there. And with the other airlines also, if you're put on reserve, sometimes you're put on reserve until you become a line holder. A line holder essentially is when schedules are released, you're assigned trips. Holding a line means you're assigned a trip, you bid for trips, and you're assigned it. You're not necessarily on reserve. It's like the opposite of being on reserve or being a reserve flight attendant essentially. So if you're a line holder, you automatically bid for trips, you get assigned trips, you're not on reserve the entire month. That's what that means. And I know with some airlines also, there's a toggle between being on reserve and being a line holder. So maybe for a few months you're on reserve back to back, and then you become a line holder in a certain month where you're assigned trips and no longer on reserve, and then it toggles back to you being on reserve again. So with if you haven't noticed yet by now, the airline industry is very complex, it's very complicated, it's very convoluted, and things, especially at least with the US airlines, operates in a very different way compared to other airlines outside of the US. So keep that in mind, and you might find some information very confusing and a lot, but with time you would understand and get used to it as well. And it all comes with doing research and learning your work roles as well. So keep that in mind if you're new out there or trying to become a flight attendant. Moving on, although we get 6 days every month until you get to the point where you can't get it anymore, but with those 6 days, it can be 2 sets of 3 days, which means you get 3 days of reserve days, you get a day off, a day or 2 or 3 off, and then you get another set of 3-day reserve days. Or you get, let's say, a set of 3 between the 1st and the 3rd of August, and you get another set of 3 between the 27th to the 30th of August. So that's how that works. Our reserve starts from 12 a.m. to 11:59. So let's say between August 1st and the 3rd, I got assigned a set of 3-day reserve, right? Which means on August 1st, 12 midnight of August 1st to 11:59 on August 1st, I'm on reserve. And it's like that for each day. So essentially, it is 12 midnight of August 1st. It starts from 12 midnight of August 1st and ends at 11:59 p.m. on August 3rd. And you're on call during that period of time. You should be ready to work. The company can call you at any point in time to assign you a trip within that period of time. However, there's a strategy to it in terms of the trips you can be assigned, among other things. I'm not here to go into details with regards to that because it's honestly not relevant or not highly relevant. But remember, it starts from 12 midnight on August 1st to 11:59 p.m. on August 3rd. So you as a commuter, what that means is that by 12 midnight of August 1st, you should be at base. So if I had a day off on July 31st, right? I'm enjoying my day off, I'm minding my own business, doing whatever I need to do to make life pleasant for me. By 12 midnight August 1st, my on-call starts. So the implications of that is that crew scheduling can literally call you at 12 midnight and assign you a trip. Yes. So if you have a 6-day block, then it's 12 a.m. It starts 12 a.m. on the 1st day and it ends 11:59 p.m. on the 6th day, which would be your last day. So you have to plan accordingly the day before. However, sometimes, or even it's happened to me, where they will call me the day before, which is July 31st on my day off, to assign me standby or a trip or something. You're not obligated to answer that call or to respond to it, but by 12 midnight of August 1st, at the start of August 1st, you should have responded. You have to respond to the assignment or whatever it is. And I would rather want to respond to the assignment as and when I get it, so I have the opportunity to request for a release until the start of that assignment. When you're on reserve, you get guaranteed pay. And that ties into another point that I have following that, which is that whether you get used or not, you're still guaranteed that pay. If you get used more hours than the guaranteed pay hours that you have for those days, then you get paid those extra hours as well. And the guaranteed hours for each day of being on reserve is 4.45 hours. So if you're on reserve for 6 days a month with the airline company that I work for each of those days, your guaranteed pay in terms of hours is 4 hours and 45 minutes. So what that totals up to is that it becomes, I think, about 28.30 hours, 28 hours and 30 minutes. That's what your guaranteed pay is for, 28 hours and 30 minutes, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong if I did the math wrong. What all this means, which is you have guaranteed pay. Whether you get used or not, you get paid. The guaranteed paid hours are 4.45 hours a day, which totals up to 28 hours and 30 minutes for 6 days of every month. What that means is that, let's say on your 8 days, you had one set of 3-day reserve or 8 days, and you got assigned a trip which was worth 20 hours or 22 hours, right? 22 hours is more than the guaranteed hours that you're inclined to get for those 3 days of being on 8 days. So essentially what you get paid for is the 20 whatever hours. To some extent, there is pay protection, but it's not like an actual line holder or an actual trip that you have been assigned not being on reserve. pay protection. So let me explain the difference. So if, let's say you're on reserve and you get assigned a trip, you have a 3-day reserve and you get assigned a trip that's worth 20 hours. You being on reserve, I believe you're guaranteed for that 3 days about 15 hours, but you get assigned a 3-day trip that's worth 20 hours. And for whatever reason, something happens and the trip gets canceled. Although the trip you got assigned while you were on reserve was worth 20 hours, your guaranteed pay will be the reserve hours, which is 15 hours. Compared to somebody who was not on reserve but was originally assigned that trip from PBS, from scheduling or whatever. They were line holder, they were holding that trip. If that trip for whatever reason gets canceled, their guaranteed pay would be the full 20 hours. So when you're on reserve, although you do have pay protection, the pay protection, it's only for the guaranteed hours that you have for that reserve period. So if you get assigned a trip and for whatever reason on the 3rd day, the flight you had to work on that 3rd day got canceled, if that flight was worth 6 hours, you would only get paid the 4.45 hours that you're guaranteed for that day. Knowing that, at least you know that there's some level of guaranteed income to come into your household as well. What is standby or airport sit? So when you're on reserve, you can get assigned a trip or you can get assigned airport sit or standby. What that essentially means is that instead of sitting at home and being ready to work, or waiting for crew scheduling to call you to assign you a trip, in this case, you're assigned to go sit at the airport for a period of time. Usually with my airline, it's for 4 hours. I did one recently, which was from 8 in the morning to like 12. So that's what that essentially is. That's what airport sit is. So you dress up, you pack your bag like you're gonna be gone for 3 days. You grab everything. It's like literally getting ready to work a trip that you don't have assigned yet. So as you're sitting in the airport, if for whatever reason somebody shows up late, because we can only board an aircraft if we have minimum crew. So if minimum crew is supposed to be 4 and there are only 3 flight attendants that have reported to work and the other person is running late, airport standby individual can be called to go board that plane. You're not necessarily going to work that flight or that rotation, but you would just help with boarding, and you do get paid for that service as well. Or for whatever reason, a crew member does not show up for a trip or a rotation, you can easily get pulled to work that rotation because you're at the airport already. So it's easier to just pull you to work a trip compared to calling somebody who is at home and having to give them 2 hours to get to the airport to work that trip, which means customers are sitting there waiting with a flight delayed for about 2 to 3 hours just to get that crew member to get there. So that's the difference. That's what the standby or airport sit mean. The other thing also is when you're on reserve, you can preference trips. So with the airline that I work for, essentially, like when I started my reserve for the month of August, which was between August 2nd to August 6th, what happened was that I would usually, the day before the start of my reserve, I would go into our system and I'll preference any trip that I do see on our open time. Open time is the portal where any trips that are available for pickup are there, and it's first come first serve. Anybody can pick it up except for somebody. If I'm on reserve, I can't pick it up because I already have something slotted for that time period. However, being on reserve, I can go on the system and preference those trips. So I can do a generic or specific. So specific one essentially would be me actually looking out for, let's say, specific trips on the system and saying, hey, if you start assigning people duties and stuff like that, people who are on reserve assignments, consider me for these trips. In that case, seniority plays a huge role. So if I'm not senior enough to hold whatever it is that I'm preferencing while on reserve, then I won't get assigned that trip. A typical example is the last reserve that I worked last month in July. I preferenced that I wanted specifically trips like Amsterdam, London, or Paris. I can preference it, but if somebody who does not have any assigned duty on those days picks it up, then it's no longer available. Because I'm on reserve, I'm literally at the mercy of a company. So the company, I can preference A, but the company can give me B because it's based on operational needs. So there's no guarantee that I might get whatever it is that I'm preferencing, especially if I'm not senior enough to hold those things. So that's how that works. So you do have the opportunity to preference certain trip and request that you get assigned certain trips or certain types of rotation, but there's no guarantee here. The only guarantee is that 4 hours and 45 minutes pay that you have. That's the only guarantee. So that's it. That's it for reserve. I hope I made it a little bit much more easier. I hope the breakdown helped you a bit, but that's all I can say. If you do have any questions, if I missed anything, just drop it in the comment section below. With that being said, if you made it this far, it means you appreciate this video or this content, and you're more than willing to support this channel. So go ahead and do so by tapping on that subscribe button and support your girl, support the channel. And once again, let me know if you have any questions, and drop your questions in the comment section below. Thank you for watching today's video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye-bye.